That's the way I feel. All God's creatures are blooming in their own way this spring. I know it's not spring yet, but it feels like it. So if you're experiencing the allergies, I feel for you. And if you're not, if you don't have allergies, you're welcome to call or super text me and tell me that I should suck it up, Buttercup, because that's what I said for 38 years of my life, and God has smote me with the allergies. There you go. All right, so the big story today, obviously, it is an absolute bombshell. We knew this was coming once it was announced that the new Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives. Let me back up for a second before I get to this. I want to set it up in this way. One of my favorite follows on Twitter, on social media, long before I got to Nashville, obviously, but for reasons that you'll soon understand. One of my favorite follows on Twitter was Charlie Daniels. If you go on that social media platform today, you'll see that Charlie Daniels is still tweeting despite the fact that he passed away a number of years ago. I don't know exactly when. I believe it's his son, Charlie Daniels Jr., that has continued his father's tradition of blessing our troops, and of one tweet in particular I'm thinking about as it relates to the subject matter we're about to get into. But Charlie was a great follow one way or the other, but one of the tweets that he did with regularity was Benghazi ain't going away. I never had the honor of meeting Charlie Daniels. I don't presume to know exactly what he meant or be inside of his head, but I know what I took from that. And that was, despite what the media does and does not tell us, despite their narratives, despite what they may or may not do to try to obfuscate as much as they possibly can from the truth. No matter how they will lie to you to protect their friends, we know the truth. We know the truth. You cannot hide it from us anymore. Often it is the case that you and I and many, many other Americans feel as if we know what is truly going on, even in the absence of evidence. It certainly felt that way prior to seeing the evidence regarding Benghazi and the 4 American souls that lost their lives that day because of the irresponsible, narcissistic, absurd behavior of Hillary Clinton and others. Little did we know at the time that the manner in which the media protected leftists with regard to Benghazi was merely the beginning of a laundry list. I wrote some down earlier today. This was just off the top of my head. Benghazi was one of them, which is what caused me to think of the late, great Charlie Daniels. The Hillary server scandal at large. The Steele dossier, which led us to understand the FBI involvement within the Steele dossier, which led us to understand that Donald Trump was in fact right when he said the FBI was spying on him in Trump Tower. The entire Trump impeachment, both of them. Now, I could do all show on each of these items. I'm just running them down for you. Obviously, more recently, COVID-19, Anthony Fauci's cover-up, the fact that it wasn't, in fact, a lab leak, and they knew that from the beginning, and they covered it up to try to lie to the American people regarding it. The Hunter Biden laptop scandal, the fact that the FBI was entangled in that from the beginning. They had the laptop in 2019. They refused to corroborate it or collaborate with any other agency to verify some of the information that's on the laptop. And then they denied social media and other platforms from the ability of getting the news out to the American people prior to the 2020 election cycle. And then there's January 6th. Over and over again, legacy media, a.k.a. MSM, mainstream media, have demonstrated that they are willing to lie to the American people if it fits a narrative that they want to present. I don't pretend that they learned this from the Trump administration, but they certainly doubled down on it during the Trump administration, inasmuch as they are willing to lie to you if it fits their agenda. This is when the Fourth Estate no longer becomes the Fourth Estate. It becomes a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party. Now, I have long believed, I've long said, and it's been proven over and over again, that the political media in this country, they gravitate left more so than center or right. And while there are outliers, those are the exceptions that prove the rule. Fox News leans more right in terms of their commentary than left. But they are the ballast against every other major media organization in the United States of America, save talk radio. And I think of talk radio quite differently than I think of CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, for example. Talk radio is more of an electronic town square. You have an immediate ability, either via telephone or email communication or super text communication or chat or whatever, to respond to the things that I'm saying in real time. It is a public debate forum. Unlike newspapers of old, 30-minute television programming designed to deliver the news, or the 24-hour media cycle. I present all of this in this way, leading up to the revelations that came out of the Tucker Carlson show last night, to try to lay the groundwork that not only are we seeing this with more regularity, they're becoming more bold, it's getting worse. The truth about COVID-19 has been laid bare. The truth about Anthony Fauci is there for all to see. And yet the same media outlets that not only refused to report the news when it originally came out, they not only refused to corroborate what we knew to be true, they also lambasted those who told the truth and tried to destroy them, and in some cases managed to destroy them. It's one thing to have a different position. It's one thing to independently ignore the facts that are sitting in front of you. It's another thing to turn that into an offensive and to try to bully people for the purpose of silencing them. And that's what we saw during COVID-19. That's what we saw during the Hunter laptop scandal. It's what we saw for the vast majority of the Trump administration regarding Russian collusion. My God, we wasted 2 years and untold millions of dollars on that nonsense, and we now know this. It wasn't that they were mistaken. They knew the truth from the beginning. They knew the Steele dossier was a load of crap from the beginning. Yet they used it to get warrants, to spy on Trump, to try to get information, because they always thought that they would find something at the end of it that would justify the evil of their means. The ends justify the means. But they never did. They never did. At the end of it, they were just left holding a bag of evil that they created. What are we going to do about it? There are people in jail that should not be because of January 6th. And because of the narrative created and born in the aftermath of January 6th. We've long known that the punishments did not fit the crime in so many ways. We've long known, and we have regularly stated, that while January 6th was, in certain ways and many ways, unlawful, while it was a shameful day in our country's history? It was never an insurrection. From the beginning, that sounded like nonsense, and it was. But the media doubled down on that word and that concept because they felt like they had something here. Never let a crisis go to waste. We are lucky in as much as the Democrats act like criminals in a lot of ways. When they find something that works, they keep after it. And they're a little too dumb to see when we're on to them. But it's time for their comeuppance. I find the playbook to be almost comical. You see a situation in front of you, let's say it's January 6th, instead of examining it for what it is, for blaming the bad guys, for exonerating those that did not do bad, for examining the situation for what it was, you decide to try to make it into something that you want it to be. You ignore facts, you ignore the truth, as did the January 6th committee beyond it, because you have to think of your own purposes and your own goals. And after years and years and years of lying, of telling half-truths, of lashing out and attempting to destroy those that were calling you on the lies, when the truth finally is laid bare to the point that you cannot refute it, you tell us it's time to heal and move on. It is not time to heal and move on. It is not time to make friends with these people. These people are evil. Evil. If you sit or stand before the American people on a platform that many of these individuals that I'm speaking of have, and you intentionally mischaracterize and lie the events to those American people for the purpose of splitting this country in two, you're evil. And I'm not going to pull these punches. Why would I? We better be willing to call the enemy what they are. Now, I don't believe that the majority of the American people are evil. Sadly, a lot of American people that follow these media organizations like MSNBC and others, #NeverCNN, they're just useful idiots. And they have doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on these concepts for too long. And it's now time they get called out. Congratulations to Tucker Carlson for night one of what I expect to be an extended expose into the real events of January 6th and dispelling some of the lies, half-truths, and myths about that day. Now, it should be said that none of this exonerates the law-breaking that went on that day. Individuals that unlawfully entered the Capitol need to be punished. There were some that broke windows. I don't know who those people are. I don't know what their purposes were, and I don't know what their backgrounds were. I'd like to know each and every one of them individually. What were their backgrounds? Where did they come from? What did they know? What was their purpose? What was their motivation? Regardless of their motivation, they ought to be punished. But I'm beginning to believe more and more as the evidence comes out more and more. We always knew there were bad actors. We don't know how many. We always knew there were plants. We don't know how many and from where. And yes, we know that certain Trump supporters went way too far in their frustration with regard to the outcome of the 2020 election cycle. We know that as well. But ask yourself this. Why was this supposedly fair and equitable committee, which it never was, it was always a circus. We've said it. I've said it since the beginning. This was a dog and pony show, not after the truth, but after an agenda. Everything that Tucker Carlson presented on his show last night, that committee knew. Every single piece of that information. And yet they did nothing about it. They did nothing to get us further to the truth. They knew that Brian Sicknick did not die because of a fire extinguisher. As an example of the lies they're willing to tell. Because they don't want to let this crisis go to waste. They thought this was the final nail in the coffin that is Donald Trump and the people that have woken up thanks to his and others' leadership. Benghazi ain't going away. And neither is this. It's 12:22, just getting started. Would love to hear from you. 615-737-9986. It's The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, also on Talk TV, available for you, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. Just getting underway this Tuesday edition, we have Congressman Tim Burchett coming up around 1:30 or so, not exactly sure of the time because of a flight. We've got an airline involved, so you never know. Also, Jack Johnson expected in the 2 o'clock hour, talking about some of the activity going on in the General Assembly, an update on the Nashville City Council resolution, an update on why exactly Donald Trump Way is dead. By the way, it was a dumb idea to begin with. No, not the renaming of a city street after Donald J. Trump, the 45th president of the United States. I'm all in favor of that. I love that idea. I think it's great. But there are hundreds of city streets in downtown Nashville that you could have chosen from. Chosen from. Idiot. He talks for a living. But you decided on John Lewis Way. Why? That was dumb. As an unforced error. Right? Makes no sense. Anyway. So if you missed some of the activity last night on Tucker Carlson, I'll just run it down for you very quickly. January 6th footage was hand-selected to make it look as bad as possible for Trump supporters and for Republicans at large. January 6th footage actually shows quite a different scene. Were there instances where people overran barricades? Yes. Were there instances where we had individuals busting down windows and doors? Yes. Would I like to know who those individuals were and what their motivations were? Yes. Do we have those answers yet? No. But what we do know, based on the footage, now, applause to Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. He delivered that footage to an individual that he believed would be fair and truthful with it. Tucker Carlson of Fox News. Tucker now has that information, but Tucker is not the first to have this. No, quite the real scandal here, folks, is not just that people are in jail that ought not to be, and that this storyline has been totally mischaracterized from what it was. Never an insurrection. Come on now. The real scandal is that you have elected officials that are currently sitting in good standing in the House of Representatives that knew it. Some have already left the body, like Adam Kinzinger, who ought to be ashamed of himself. I've often said that liberals would feel ashamed of themselves if they had any, but they don't. Liberals would be hypocrites, but in order for them to be hypocrites, they have to have standards, and they don't. So, in surveillance video footage, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of said footage. But in this footage, we are dispelling a couple of myths, one involving a man by the name of Jacob Chansley, who is commonly referred to as the QAnon shaman. He was referred to that by the liberal mainstream media to try to make him look as bad as possible. He's actually a military veteran, and he was escorted around the Capitol. Escorted around the Capitol by Capitol Police. He was unarmed, escorted around the Capitol by Capitol Police, and he's sitting in jail for 4 years. Should Jacob Chansley had known better to go into the Capitol? Probably, sure. I mean, I get all of that. I think anyone that entered the Capitol that day, absent a police invitation, by the way, a lot of them had that, should have known better. But that's not the presentation that the mainstream media gave us about Jacob Chansley. We were told by individuals sitting on the set of #NeverCNN and MSNBC that people like Jacob Chansley should be tried for treason and killed. Are you kidding me? I've got more on Ray Epps. I've got more on Brian Sicknick and his passing. It's a huge bombshell. It's getting us closer to the truth, and it's why the mainstream media doesn't want us talking about it today. Your reaction to on the super text line and on the phone line, 615-737-9986 as we continue. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, it is appointment season for that air conditioner, and I want you to make that appointment with Efficient Heating and Cooling and my man, Jeff Eddy. If you're trying to make the decision whether to repair or replace, Jeff is the guy to talk with because he's going to give you an honest assessment, whether it's a first opinion or a second opinion, as to how much more life you can get out of that AC. And if it's straining and costing you money in that regard, or if you know it's going to go down, you don't want to wait till the hot summer months to get it replaced. It's time to get that done. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an elite pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net is the way to contact them. Peruse the website, look around, and then make the call that so many others have made to the trusted voice in heating and air conditioning in Nashville, Tennessee, and beyond. Efficient Heating and Cooling. 615-784-4424. 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling. Aaron writes in on the Super Talk TV line, "You look nothing like I imagined." Boy, I get that a lot. Even uglier. 1238 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see you on Super Talk TV. Just come on. We can also listen, rather you can also listen on the application, the app. You just go to your app store and you download WTN 99.7 and you go from there. You can also find us on the SuperTalk text line, where a lot of you are opining on our opening monologue. For example, 2697 says, I'm sorry to say, but that last segment was a whole bunch of nothing. All words and opinions, but no substance. Never even came back to anything about the Speaker of the House. I responded, thanks for listening. May I ask what you'd like to talk about? I was very interested in the subject matter, but it seemed like we never got the information. Some of this got filled in better after the break. Lunchtime listening is short. I was waiting for the facts to take home to dinner table. Well, I'm happy to deliver them. Here's what we know based on what Tucker Carlson, and by the way, my first segment was table setting. I was trying to not get ahead of myself for those who have not been privy to this information or did not watch Tucker Carlson's show last night. I did. What we know is that much of the narrative being presented by the mainstream media has been erroneous at best. And sadly, they're doubling down on it today. We were told, for example, for the last 2 years that it was a deadly terrorist attack on America's capital. While there may have been some terrorist, cough, cough, Ray Epps, in the crowd stirring up trouble, most of the individuals who were inside the Capitol committed no violent acts whatsoever. They entered the Capitol, milled about for a period of time, and left. The QAnon shaman is a good example. We were told that the QAnon shaman was a violent insurrectionist. Turns out he was escorted through the Capitol by Capitol Police, to the point that they eventually got to the Senate chamber. They tried to get him in one door of the Senate chamber. They couldn't get him in one door of the Senate chamber. They moved him around to another door of the Senate chamber. They finally gained access to the Senate chamber. And when he was in there, he had his little megaphone with him, and he thanked the police officers for bringing him there. The gentleman that is known as the QAnon shaman, a man by the name of Jacob Chansley, pled guilty to unlawful entry. He did so on the premise and promise that he would get a reduced sentence, and he got 4 years in prison. And he said his biggest regret was believing that because they offered him an escort to the Senate chamber that he thought that he was lawfully allowed to be there. Which is understandable when you watch the video. If he was a violent insurrectionist, he walked by. There's a point in the videotape where he walks by 9 Capitol Police officers while one of them escorts him to the Senate chamber, and they don't do anything. Why wouldn't they stop him? Number 2 thing that we've learned, and we knew this from reporting after the fact, at the time that the January 6th attack occurred, the mainstream media outlets told us that Brian Sicknick, a Capitol Police officer, was killed on the scene. Initially, we were told that he was killed by a blow to the head by a fire extinguisher. We now know that not only is that not true, but that he was never assaulted in any way that incapacitated him. As a matter of fact, Tucker and his team discovered video of Brian Sicknick gathering people and escorting them out of the Capitol building 30 minutes after the mainstream media reported that he had been attacked. Sadly, Brian Sicknick lost his life several days later in what is now believed to be an unrelated matter to the events of that day. We still do not have, although we have additional evidence, we do not have information about who Ray Epps was and who he worked for. It has long been believed that Ray Epps was an embedded agent working for the FBI. We don't know if that's true or not. We do know this, that Ray Epps was interviewed begrudgingly by the January 6th committee, and eventually he was allowed to leave, allowed to go, charged with no crime because he did not enter the Capitol himself. Ray Epps lied to the special committee of January 6th when he told them that he had left the property by 2:14 that afternoon. He's seen repeatedly on videotape 30 and 45 minutes later. Still outside of the crowd and still seemingly, and what you can see in the video, and you don't want to speculate, You just want to report the truth. You don't want to give any room for the other side to claim that you're needlessly speculating on these matters. But any reasonable person can watch these videos released last night by Tucker and see that Ray Epps was attempting to rile up the crowd outside of the Capitol to convince more people to go inside of the Capitol. Something that he most certainly did earlier that morning and the night before. We're not going to the Capitol, he said. We're going inside the Capitol, he said. So I hope that 2697 covers some of the more important points before you have to get back to it. Allison writes in, hey, Matt, it's Allison. Do you think it was a mistake for the speaker to only provide this video information to Fox News? If it had been disseminated to MSM, they would be forced to either recognize it or to explain why they will ignore it. I don't believe that for a moment. Understand that the mainstream media, the hashtag #NeverCNNs, the political left of this world, they are never going to admit a mistake, and they're never going to back up. This is my take on this. They're never going to back up and admit that they were wrong. They never do. They never have on any of these matters that we now know were intentionally, erroneously reported. As far as January 6th goes, the January 6th committee, they knew all of this all along. They had access to all of this information, and they refused to report on it. They refused to bring it up in their special committee hearing because it didn't fit their narrative. I would expect that once this evidence is gone through, that if the speaker desires, he can release the information to further media outlets like hashtag #NeverCNN. But I believe that they would have chopped this up in the same manner that they always swallowed it in an attempt to make it look as bad as possible to the players involved. I do not believe for a moment, given the totality of the evidence and given their propensity to maneuver narratives to their advantage, I don't believe that they're honest actors. I guess to answer your honest question, Allison, I don't believe that these individuals are after the truth. I believe they're after protecting their own narrative and protecting individuals they believe in, namely the Democrats. I think they are being forced to speak to it. And secondarily, I would, and I'm not trying to pick nits with you, Allison, when I say this, but Fox News did not get this information. Tucker Carlson specifically got this information for a reason, I think. Maybe others on Fox News will eventually be made privy to it, but so far, others on Fox News have not been given this info. Dave writes in and says, Matt, I believe that day they wouldn't. Okay, I don't understand this. Matt, I believe that day, wouldn't they, as Hello C, and the Democrats wanted the protesters do come in. I'm just going to read this verbatim. All right, Mason's over there. Mason, see if you understand this. Okay, Ray? Matt, I believe that day, wouldn't they, as Hello C and the Democrats wanted the protesters do come in so they can just do what they called it an insurrection. That's why they don't arrest the so-called shaman. Dave, I'm going to go ahead and say that was voice to text, and I appreciate you being careful in the automobile. I also say to you that I don't understand any of that, and maybe you can hit us back later on. Dallas says Tucker got the footage, not Fox News, and that's true. It's important. I do believe that this information needed to be reviewed by a source that was trustworthy enough in as much as they don't agendize the information. And I applaud Tucker, too, because one of the things last night that he made a point of saying was that we could and have information that potentially could assign motivation to certain individuals that you're seeing on these videos, and we're not going to do that because we don't have the facts to back that up. It would enter the arena of speculation, if we attempted to assign motivation to some of the people that were breaking down the doors and breaking into the Capitol and encouraging others to do so. It has long been rumored and speculated that there were embedded FBI agents within those groups. The FBI refuses to admit anything other than there were certain FBI agents embedded within those groups. We want to know who they were and how much they had to do with the break into the Capitol. It almost feels like entrapment in some ways. Ricky's in Watertown. Ricky, thank you for holding. How are you, sir? Glad you called.
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
The reason I called, let's go back to the last election. ABC News and CBS, all of them were predicting Biden the winner of the election with only 2%. It's theoretically impossible to predict the winner of an election with just 2% of votes counted. Think about it. I'm screaming, somebody call the law, get the law down there. There's rape in progress.
I don't, I'm not here to defend the mainstream media, but I don't recall anyone declaring Biden the winner when 2% of the vote was in.
Oh, yes, they did.
Who did?
CBS, not CBS, but ABC did.
They were calling individual states, Ricky. I just don't recall what you're talking about. I'm not trying to argue with it. The fix was already in. The media did not decide the election on election night. The vote harvesting decided the election weeks before it happened. So, I understand that we're frustrated with the mainstream media. I am too. So I'm not going to argue that point. I just don't remember those specifics. I appreciate your call. I'm not defending the media. Trust me. I'm not suggesting that they're not in the bag for Joe Biden. I just don't recall what Ricky's talking about. I don't remember a media outlet saying with 2% of the vote in that Joe Biden's the winner. And I was there on election night, and I remember when Pennsylvania began turning. It was late into the evening, and it was all about Pennsylvania at one point. And when Pennsylvania started turning away from Donald Trump and toward Joe Biden, we felt like the fix was in then. But that was at 10 o'clock at night. I remember not believing that it was decided at 9:30, 10 o'clock. So one way or the other, Ricky, I get that you're frustrated with the mainstream press not being fair with regard to the facts, and I understand that. It's 12:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to talk to you about your mortgage. I know it's a frustrating time if you're considering buying a house, if you're considering selling your house, because everything's going up and down and interest rates are where they are. They're not as high as they were about 6 months ago, but things are crazy right now. You need a trusted, stable voice to help you navigate these choppy waters. You need Accurate Mortgage Group. They're to the rescue with their payment reduction plan that helps buyers enjoy a lower mortgage payment for the first couple of years. It's a normal fixed-rate mortgage, but it's going to be a lower payment for the first 2 years. That's going to help the buyer, and it's going to help the seller make their property more attractive to said buyer. Secondarily, if you're looking to pay off high-interest credit card debts, if you've got thousands of dollars in credit card debt and you're paying a lot of interest on that debt, you can still roll this in to a cash-out refinance that gives you the opportunity to pay off that high-interest debt and still get a lower rate as a result of that refinance. And if you're thinking of building onto your home, you want to stay in your property, and you need a construction loan, they can help you with a single-close construction loan as well. Accurate Mortgage Group has a lot of different options, and they're local. They're available to you in Cool Springs. When I give them a call today, a division of Acopia LLC, an equal housing lender, Accurate Mortgage Group, NMLS 4664. Tell them Murphy sent you when you visit them at AccurateMTG.com. That's AccurateMTG.com. Yeah, that's happening in about 1 minute from now. Congressman Tim Burchett will be with us in the 1 o'clock hour. Jack Johnson in the 2 o'clock hour. Just getting warmed up. 1 down, 2 to go on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Our General Assembly update will include a conversation about motorcycle helmets in the state of Tennessee. Also, the GOP has passed the Nashville Council. The GOP has passed the Nashville Council Reduction Act, and Donald Trump Way is an idea that has died in the General Assembly this year. I also watched the Chris Rock special last night. Enjoyed it. I'll give you a review coming up at some point. Plus, daylight saving time is this weekend. Pro, con, which way would you go? We'll discuss today, and I'll give you an update on Cop City. It's all to come on Super Talk 99.7 WTN and the Matt Murphy Show. Stand by for news. All righty, welcome back. We enter hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased you've decided to join us today. Whatever time you're able to give us, we're appreciative. We're here till 3 o'clock. After that, The Drive with Brian Wilson coming up. He's till 7. It's information fueled and opinion driven on News Talk 99.7. Are we back on television, on the television side of things? Just want to make sure that happens. Well, that's unfortunate. Congressman Tim Burchett will be with us coming up in just a moment. There he is calling back. We'll get him on the line and get things underway and going. I don't think the reason I asked is I was trying to see if you could see my sign in the background. I got to figure out a better place to put my sign. I've got a daily message for you, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Super Talk TV viewers on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. I think you can see it if you really, really try, but I've got to figure out a better place to put that thing. All right, 615-737-9986. A lot of you commenting on our first hour of the show. To that point, I mean, many of you understand or agree with me. I mean, I guess reasonable people can disagree on this point, that this is a huge story. It is a huge expose. It's demonstrably evident that the mainstream media, in collusion with the January 6th committee, and maybe you could make the argument that the media was simply duped by the committee, but there's no doubt that the committee knew that a lot of the narrative they were presenting to the American people was completely false. They were presenting that narrative anyway in order to hurt Donald Trump, or to attempt to, one would seem to believe, prevent him from running for re-election. So we'll continue breaking this down for you as information becomes available. In the meantime, Congressman Tim Burchett is with us. We asked him to come on and talk about a couple of matters that are of import to this Congress, but we'll start by saying hello, Congressman. Welcome in, and thank you for being on with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, brother. It's always a pleasure.
Tim, have you been following this revelation? I mean, the Speaker of the House, now that he's in control, there was a lot of consternation about whether or not Kevin McCarthy was the right guy for the job. I know you felt like he was. He is demonstrating that over and over again, and kudos to the Speaker for releasing this 40,000 some hours of video surveillance footage from the United States Capitol on January 6th. Have you been following how this story has been unfolding, specifically on Tucker Carlson? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have. It's really nothing new to me. I was there. I was the last person to leave the House floor, the last congressional member to leave the House floor on January 6th during the riot. And I knew the whole thing was. I knew it was a bad situation when I actually saw a person doing a podcast down in the tunnel, and I reported it to the Capitol Hill Police. And then a week later, I called them back, and they would not. And they said, "Yeah, we're going to get to you." And then they went down and then on the House floor, they had a meeting with us on what to do if another, riot or whatever occurs, and how to use the gas mask and all that stuff. And I told them again. And I said, "Yeah, I can identify the person if you'd let me see the tapes." And they wouldn't let me see the tapes. So I had another member of Congress who could get access to those tapes. And we went down and viewed them, and I pointed out the person. As it turned out, it was the person. They were a public television reporter that was up here, and she was literally doing a podcast telling people where we were. And I never could get anybody to respond to it or anything. So anything and then of course when Speaker Pelosi turned down Kevin McCarthy's choices of people to be on the committee, I knew the thing was a hoax. And of course they hired some guy from ABC to produce it. And it just went from bad to worse. Nothing this bunch does surprises me. And I want to correct you on something. I know I shouldn't do this. The national media was not duped. They are in collusion with all of this. They do not like our way of life. They are anarchist, if not Marxist, and they're going to try to push us down that path.
Well, I agree with that, Tim. I'm doing my best to bend over backwards to give them, and maybe they don't deserve it, and they probably don't, but to give them the benefit of the doubt that they don't give any of us. But I'm also in the midst of reporting some of this that came out last night based on Tucker's surveillance or his viewing of hours and hours of video. I'm getting some pushback that this is old news. It's not important. Now, I think it's very important to correct the record, not just on January 6th, but on Russian collusion, on the lab leak theory, quote unquote. We'll get into that in more depth in a moment, on the COVID-19 issues. I mean, all of these things, correcting the record, it's become more important than ever because the media has become more hyper-partisan than ever.
Oh, 100%. And you got to slap them back, because if you don't, they'll just keep pushing. And the thing is, the problem is we push back, and then we get back to a certain point where we're comfortable or where, well, we'll take that. No, we shouldn't take that at all. Push it back the very nth degree, because it is everything they've done in this country is built upon a lie. From, the Trump-Russia collusion to COVID, it didn't come from a Chinese lab. They wouldn't have done that, or we weren't involved with it. Fauci wasn't involved. Right now we're pumping it out so fast that we don't, I'm afraid the American public's just going to be consumed with all this, and it's just going to be kind of whitewashed over. Because there is just so much. They've lied so much about so many things, and we've caught them on just about everything. And and in our oversight committee, I just saw Chairman Comer just 15 minutes ago, and I think there's just so much out there. And we're going to have to kind of parse it out. If we put it all out at once, I'm afraid it will just get washed under the rug.
Well, I think Americans are wiser than the mainstream media gives them credit for. At least I have to believe that, Tim. Otherwise, I think we're sunk if people are buying into some of the narratives that were created several years ago and that are continued to this very day. One of those narratives was created, it seems, almost in wholly by Anthony Fauci with regard to the origins of COVID-19. Now the truth is coming out. We now know that Anthony Fauci defended his quote-unquote belief that this was a naturally occurring event that came from a bat meat market across the street from the Wuhan virology lab, by the way. He commissioned a study. He reviewed the study. He had final say on its findings. And then 2 weeks after it was reported, he comes out, unbeknownst obviously to President Trump at the time, and proclaims that this scientific review is evidence to point to the fact that it was a naturally occurring event, one that he commissioned and he had final say on. Of course, he didn't put those two things together for the American people because he was deceiving them. What, if anything, should come of this? I mean, should Anthony Fauci be held to account for lying before Congress regarding gain-of-function research and America's funding of it?
I think he should. It's just self-fulfilled prophecy is all he's done. And he got his hand caught in the cookie jar. He needs to be fired. He needs to be run out of town. But the way this town does, they'll probably make a statue of him. And our kids will be forced to learn about how great he was for years to come. We've got a real problem there. And that's, he's lied to us from the start. My friend Rand Paul, he had him on the coals early on, and we should have listened to Rand. He's always one step ahead of everything, it seems, and we didn't do it. And that's going to be, and it costs this country billions of dollars. It costs jobs. I mean, little restaurants in Knoxville that closed down, little businesses that closed down. It moved us all closer to more, I hate to say it, but more government control, more of this Marxist kind of thing that we seem to be in lockstep marching towards, and nobody's called them into question.
Who, in your opinion, Congressman, and Tim Burchett is with us today from the Tennessee delegation, talking to us about a number of issues. Who do you believe, what nation is America's number one geopolitical foe right now?
China, without a doubt, China. It's not Russia. Russia's GDP is somewhere between Canada and France. They're watching us every step of the way and everything we do. And we're showing them exactly how we're going to operate under Ukraine when they march into Taiwan. And we'll probably roll out the red carpet. Some of the people will up here anyway. And we are, without Trump in the White House right now, our foes no longer fear us and our friends no longer respect us. We left billions of dollars of armaments on the ground in Afghanistan. We've turned our military into some woke, feel-good thing. Our Navy SEALs are spending more time learning about woke policy than they are on the rifle range, and we just go down the line. And China is we've got TikTok, we've got Cory Booker, the U.S. senator, who claims he's negotiating with China in good faith to clear up the TikTok situation. Now, you got an operation that's run by a group called Huawei, and that is run through their Chinese Communist military. It's their communications. It's basically their everything in communications. They've come into our country and they monitor everything we do. They're spying on us with this apparatus, and the president's kind of wringing his hands about it. The president's compromised. His son's in bed, literally and figuratively, with China, business-wise. And, we have a general in a surveillance balloon, something 1800s technology, basically, flying over our country. And we have a general tell the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, that no, he will not, in fact, knock this balloon down. He will let it transverse the entire continental United States of America, and it goes over all of our secret military installations in Montana, our nuclear weapons out there, over Y-12 nuclear weapons in East Tennessee, in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. You name it, this thing was absorbing data.
Let me interrupt you real quick, Tim, because can you explain to me and the listening audience if that's the way that it's supposed to work? I think I know the answer to this question, but you're a lot closer to it than I am as a sitting congressman. Yeah. The President of the United States told a military general, at least this is what we're told, to shoot the Chinese spy balloon down, and the general told the President no.
That's correct. The Commander-in-Chief. Now, there's a reason George Washington took his uniform off to become President of the United States, wore civilian clothing. Because there's supposed to be a civilian control, the way the framers of our country designed it, and it's masterful. Civilian control of the government, of the military, and you had a general the same general, General Milley, who under Trump was in secret negotiations at the end of Trump's tenure, and he told him. He told the Chinese that he's in charge, basically, and don't worry about anything. Now, the same general is telling him that, and you have the president, whose son doing millions upon millions of dollars in business with the Chinese while he was vice president, flying over to China, meeting with Chinese businessmen. I mean, the thing just stinks. People ought to, and there's more to it. There's stuff I can't talk about. I was briefed on a couple of weeks ago. It would scare you to death about the control they have and the access they have in this country. I mean, they have a police force in this country.
Hold your thought for just a moment, Congressman. I don't want to rush you on this final question, if you can, because this question involves the spy technology that we're discussing, because I don't for the life of me understand how the media can just drop this question without an answer. And the question is, where's the payload? We were supposedly going to get the payload out of 50 feet of water, and I've not seen one single piece of evidence suggesting that we've done so. Secondarily, I want to know where the pictures are of the other stuff that we shot down. Congressman Tim Burchett's with us. He's also going to answer a question about the debt ceiling when we return. It's 1:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Tim Melton. 126 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Matt Murphy Show continues. A few more moments with Congressman Tim Burchett discussing a variety of topics to include the threat from the Chinese as our number one geopolitical foe. And I would agree with the congressman in his assessment in that. Considering that, Congressman, and considering that, sadly, the Biden administration allowed a spy balloon, what we knew was a spy balloon, to traverse the entire continental United States of America, only then to shoot it down when it was off the coast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And we were assured at the time that this shoot down happened that we'd recover the payload and we'd get all this valuable information with regard to the payload. I've not heard. Maybe this happened unbeknownst to me. Are you aware that we've recovered everything that we need to recover after that shoot down?
I think they've recovered most of it, but what scared me about that, my limited knowledge of electronics, is that when it hits salt water, it pretty much fries it. You know, they kept saying that it was the safety of Americans, the reason they didn't shoot it down over Montana. I mean, you're more likely to hit some guy with a mullet and a tie-dyed T-shirt on a shrimp boat off the coast of Myrtle Beach than you are to hit somebody in Montana. The Democrat senator of Montana said, shoot it down. That lame used car lot balloon that they shot down over Canada, that the president up there, I mean, that guy, I mean, he wears skinny jeans and has a man bun probably. He even said shoot it down, you know, when he was first made aware of it. The problem you've got, what happened was that some good old boy saw that Chinese balloon and pointed it out to the media, and then our great Pentagon, who honestly couldn't pour water out of a boot if the instructions were written on the heel of it, they had to admit that these things were up there, and they weren't up there during the Trump administration. That was a lie. I've talked to too many people. I've talked to generals that were in the Trump administration, said no, in fact they did not. So this thing is just the Chinese, and part of it too is the Chinese trying to see how we will react to it, and they know we're basically a bunch of wimps. And
you know, you just pointed in your answer. You just put two things together that I had not thought of, and I understand the circumstances had substantially changed once the American people became aware of this Chinese spy balloon. But it was an American plane that shot down that balloon over Canada, right?
Correct.
So the American military refused an order by our commander-in-chief, but they obeyed an order by the Canadian Prime Minister.
That's pretty much it, yeah. And they knew that it was not a Chinese balloon as well, but that they had to shoot it down for PR reasons. Then if you notice, they immediately shot down, I think, 3. 2 of them we pretty much know, and 1 is suspect. But that was a PR move on their part to say, look what we're doing. We're getting tough on Chinese balloons, and you know, the Chinese just watched everything we're doing, and we performed. And as I've said many times, they're playing chess, and we're doing a poor job at playing chess.
And, Congressman, I wouldn't put it past this administration, because I think that Joe Biden is compromised by the Chinese through Hunter and through his own financial entanglements, that the Chinese, if they were to say, look, we're getting all of the information that we need to get, it's uploading all of that information to a spy satellite, so you let us go across the continental U.S., you can shoot it down once it gets off the coast. We don't care.
Yeah, well, I think he had to once it got over got past Myrtle Beach. I guess they needed to make sure they got everything from the Grand Strand over there, or whatever they call it. But yeah, you're exactly right.
Where do you think, over the last minute or two that we have left, Congressman, where do you think we are on the debt ceiling? I saw a comment by you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you're of the opinion that we need to say no. And I am right there with you. We're $32 trillion in. At some point, we have to say no.
Shut it down. That's what I say. Shut it down. I voted to shut it down under Trump. I'm going to do it under Biden. And here's the deal. Every time we do this, us well-meaning conservatives and moderates, they fold and they say, okay, we'll put these things into place, and we'll raise the debt ceiling, but let's put these cost-saving measures into place. We agree to it. They agree to it. Guess what? They lie. They lie to us. They spend money faster than every time they spend it, and then we agree to it every time, and that's what happens. We put good measures in. They don't follow them. You know, how are you gonna? You can't negotiate with a liar. You got to shut it down. And and the president will make it hurt as much as he can. He'll hit veterans. He'll hit our seniors. He'll hit poor folks. Oh, look at these horrible Republicans. And the problem is we just can't keep spending money like this. And the public has to realize that. They have to realize that. They need Dave Ramsey to give them one of his courses on debt reduction. And debt is dumb because we are stupid.
Well, sadly, I believe we're at a point in American history where all we can hope to do is to stop adding to the $32 trillion. If we could do that, that's a big lift. I don't know how we get to paying it back, but hopefully we can stop adding to it with your help, Congressman. I appreciate your time this afternoon. You're always gracious with it, and we'll do it again very soon.
Hey, I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim. There's Congressman Tim Burchett joining us for a few moments. He comes back on the show, even though I mispronounced his name for the entirety of the first interview I ever had. Remember that? Call him Tim Burkett. That was not correct. It's Burchett. 132 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When we return, an incredible story out of my former state of Alabama about a girls' team competing against the boys, winning, and then being denied a trophy. More to come on that as we continue. It's the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There are reports that over the last 40 years that men's testosterone as a group now has gone down consistently over that span of time. There are a lot of different conflicting reasons why this might be occurring, but if individually you feel sluggish, if you feel less energy in your life, if you don't have the energy to get out and do things in the yard or perhaps go to the gym, then it's time to get that T checked. With a testosterone check, you can at least check that box off your list, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. If your testosterone's where it's supposed to be, the folks at Tennessee Men's Clinic will tell you so. And then you can move on to other matters like, are you getting enough sleep? Is your energy level down for other reasons? But if it is your testosterone, the Tennessee Men's Clinic will help you solve that issue. They have a lot of different options for you. All you need to do for less than $100 is get the blood sample work done. They'll also give you a PSA test, amongst other things, and they can get to work solving the issues that you might have. And yes, it is true, gentlemen, that if you're having difficulty in the bedroom, they can help you with that too. Tennessee Men's Clinic at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or the telephone number, it's 208-9090. That's 208-9090 for our friends at Tennessee Men's Clinic. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Would love to hear from you. 615-737-9986. Phone lines always available during the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day. Thank you so much. You can also hit us up on the Super Text line and watch us on Super Talk TV. Man, oh man, I got a tooth problem. See, that's what happens when I try to eat during the show. Try to have a little snack during a break. And then now I've got a tooth problem. I don't know what to do with it. It'll work itself out, I'm sure. Coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, Senator Jack Johnson will discuss GOP activity in the General Assembly, including there's a bill, I believe, to eliminate motorcycle helmets in the state of Tennessee. I mean, I'm just telling you. Well, no. Freedom is no good, even in a red state like Tennessee. I'm all for it, but you just have to sign some sort of waiver that I don't have to take care of you if your brain goes mushy. I'm a motorcycle rider. I don't understand why anyone would want to be at speed without a helmet on. I just don't. Now, I'm all about open face. But I don't understand why I learned to ride with a helmet, so maybe it's just a matter of that. I can't even ride with one of those buckets on because you expose my ears and then I can't hear anything, and it's just different strokes for different folks, though. If you want to ride in such a way where your head goes mushy, that's fine. That's more power to you. Just don't expect that we have to take care of you regarding insurance if you do, in fact, go mushy. More on that coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. There was more of an attack against a government agency over the weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, than there was on January 6th. Police say at least 23 people will face domestic terrorism charges after they were arrested Sunday amidst violence protests at a site of a planned law enforcement training facility in Atlanta, which has been called Cop City, by opponents who claim it would propagate militarized policing and harm the environment. Yeah, that's what it's about, the environment, sure. Police and construction equipment were assailed with Molotov cocktails, commercial-grade fireworks, bricks, and rocks, according to authorities, and according to video surveillance. A construction tractor was set ablaze, smoke billowing into the air. Footage from the area shows at least 4 other fires burned in and around the fenced area as people dressed in black swarmed to both sides of a police barricade before additional officers arrived. 35 people were detained. 2 of those were arrested. 2 arrested were from Georgia, while police say the rest hail from places like Maine and Arizona. 1 person was from Canada, another from France, according to a list provided Monday by the Atlanta Police Department. The incident came at the start of what protesters were calling a week-long, quote, mass mobilization, with Thursday labeled a National Day of Action Against Police Terror at the forested site slated to be the host of the $90 million, 85-acre law enforcement facility. And, of course, largely this is being ignored by the mainstream media because these are Antifa types coming from all over in an attempt to disrupt police activity in the city of Atlanta because they are anti-police. Obviously so. In the meantime, Mike is with us out of, I don't know what this says, Mike. Is this South Pittsburgh?
Right, South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, right between Chattanooga and Nashville.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, how's it going, man? Hope you're well.
If you splitting wood and stacking wood, if you call that well.
Are you splitting it with an axe or you got a wood splitter?
Oh, I got a splitter.
Oh, that's good.
I'm too old for the axe thing. Yeah, Matt, I just want to tell you that I enjoy your show. I listen to you every day.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
My question is this: is as strict as D.C. is about their gun laws, why wasn't the day before? Why wasn't D.C. locked down when somebody filmed somebody trying to plant pipe bombs? January 6th should never have happened if it was locked down on January the 5th like it should have been.
Well, or I'll give you another example. Why was the chief of the Capitol Police not allowed to bring in additional guards and additional Capitol Police officers when he requested them? Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell turned him down.
Exactly, and Chuck Schumer too. Yep, they're all, you know, it's just one big setup. I mean, without due process, I mean, come on, those folks are still in jail.
Well, no, you're right, and it is being exposed slowly but surely as the Dog and Pony Show that it was. Your reference to December 5th, I don't know, did they catch? I'm trying to remember the timeline. I don't believe that they caught those bombs until January 6th. There were some that were found, I think, at the DNC on the morning of January 6th after Kamala Harris left the Capitol and went over to the DNC. There were some others that were found on property, I guess, in the early morning hours. Maybe it was even the night of January 5th. But, look, consistently, individuals at the Capitol declined additional security, despite the fact that they well knew that there would be a lot of people in Washington, D.C., and a lot of those people were very upset about the outcomes that they felt like were to say the very least, there were some shenanigans that went on during the election cycle that would lead people to be really upset about the outcomes of those elections. And for whatever reason, the powers that be refused to provide additional security forces for the individuals in place so that they could secure that area. Now, their motivation behind that is, your guess is as good as mine, Mike.
Oh, well, the motivation is the fact that if we have security there, they're not going to breach that Capitol.
Yeah, there will be no chaos.
We want them to breach that Capitol, so we're going to call it something to do with optics. It would look bad, right?
No,
Man.
it's all garbage. I mean, obviously, Pelosi could have increased security. Muriel Bowser could have helped in that regard. Donald Trump allowed for an additional 20,000 troops to be present, and they turned him down. Yet Donald Trump is the one that was blamed for the breach of the Capitol building. There was a plan. I mean, they knew, and in addition to that, and Mike, thank you. I'll let you get back to that wood splitting. In addition to that, Mike brings up a good point. Capitol police officers knew that there was a permitted protest outside of the Capitol. When Donald Trump made reference to, I know you're going to march to the Capitol, I know you're going to voice your displeasure peaceably over there, and he said peaceably, he was referring to a planned Capitol protest that was occurring after his speech at the Ellipse. Some, however far that is away, half mile, 3/4 of a mile. So the Capitol Police knew that individuals would leave the National Mall and move into position at the Capitol in order to protest. And it's at that point that things got crazy. And look, once again, I want to reiterate, whatever the motivation behind the individuals that convinced enough people to breach the Capitol, those people did breach the Capitol, and that's wrong. And obviously, you need to be charged with wrongdoing if you've done wrong. No one's diminishing that. Unlawful assembly, unlawful parade without a permit, unlawful entry to prohibited buildings. That's all well and good. But then you look at Jacob Chansley and realize that there's no moment within the Capitol, there's no moment on video that I've seen, and we saw a good bit of it last night, of him within the Capitol building in which he's not being escorted by a Capitol police officer. They took him around from place to place, assisted him in getting in certain locations that were locked. Why? Why would they do that? Well, the excuse is, and Miranda Devine has a great piece on this at the New York Post, the excuse is that they were trying to diffuse the situation by being as nice as possible. Well, that might well be. What I am more fascinated with, the number of the number of media figures that are lamenting the release of this footage. I thought we wanted to get to the truth. It's fascinating when the truth leads to a conclusion that you don't like, suddenly you don't want to get to the truth. Suddenly you don't want to see this footage released. In the meantime, the super text line is up and running, and 8653 said, stop calling it a protest and start calling it riots. I don't know. What is it? You have to tell me what it is. I get a lot of super texts, so I don't know what you're making reference to. Stop calling it a it, you mean the Capitol, or it, you mean the Atlanta riots? A lot of reaction on the super text line as well to me bringing up the helmet law. We'll get into more of that coming up at the 2 o'clock hour. And I'll never rode without a helmet. I think it would feel weird. I wore a half helmet for years, switched to full face 2 years ago. I went those bucket helmets, and I didn't like it because my ears were exposed and it was very loud, especially on the interstate. I prefer a 3/4 helmet. I like the wind on my face, but I like the protection on my ears and on my head. Look, I don't begrudge people that don't wear helmets. I just couldn't do it, not for any length of time. I've ridden short distances without a helmet at low speed, and I recognize that I wouldn't like it. Your head gets hit by too many bugs, honestly. I just don't care for it. 151 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When we come back, we'll continue on the anti-cop city violence. 23 arrested. One was a lawyer for the SPLC. They're saying that he was a legal observer. I think they've got that word wrong. We'll do that in a moment. 151 on Super Talk. LT360 is here for you, folks. LT360 is not a weight loss program, although you will lose weight if you're a part of the LT360 family. It's not a diet program either. You go on a diet, you go off a diet. It is a lifestyle. It is understanding that if you put good things into your system, you're going to get good out of that same system. So we talk about health on a cellular level when we talk about LT360. Now, what does that mean? Coach Scott can help you with that answer. It is digging deep to understanding why your body reacts to certain things the way that it does, why it doesn't to other things, how you can get off some of the pharmaceuticals that you currently find yourself on. It's available for you at LT360.com. LT360.com. Find out what so many others have found, that LT360, that lifestyle transformation, is truly life-changing, and it can help you lose the weight that you've been trying to lose. Your body wants to lose that weight the right way, and the right way is LT360. Call Coach Scott, Coach Elizabeth, Dr. Underwood, or any of the rest of the team at LT360. The journey begins at LT360.com. That's LT360.com. I love it when I get called out by the listeners for not fulfilling my promises. This one coming from 5604. Hey, Mr. ADD, what happened to the story women versus men, women win, but no award story? My bad. It was actually girls. It was the group of 5th grade Hoover, Alabama girls forced to play boys in a recreational youth league. And when they won, they were not recognized as champions because they were girls. Oh, I'll feed you, baby birds, I promise. I've got the full story coming up. Plus, I'm hoping Jack Johnson's stopping by. He might be stuck in committee. I don't know. Your call's on the way next in the final hour of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Plus, we'll talk about motorcycle helmets. I'm excited about that. A lot of reaction on the Super Text line. We'll do that next. Stand by. Here we go. Final hour of the Matt Murphy Show is on the air, 2:06, and a good afternoon to you. Hope you're well. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's our episode 292. We'll hand off to The Drive with Brian Wilson at the end of the hour on this Tuesday, March 7th. And as I say, I hope you're doing well. 615-737-9986. We've covered the January 6th committee fiasco, revelations. The committee was a fiasco. The revelations from last night were incredible. Exactly what we thought it would be concerning some who broke the law, some who were mischaracterized by the committee and others. And we'll just keep that on the back burner for now as we move on to a few other things. And we, obviously it is a scandal on top of another scandal, on top of another scandal, on top of another scandal. I mean, it's over and over again. And you can't help but just scratch your head and wonder what's coming next. So there you have it. In the meantime, you're welcome to give us a call at 615-737-9986. I would encourage 6241 to call me. No, as a matter of fact, don't. That wouldn't turn out well. 6241 is a super texter that's telling me that all of us DJs are naive because we believe that foreign people were involved in the 9/11 attacks. That's what is right there. I'm not making it up. I can show you. It's right over there. All of you, he spelled night. I'm assuming he meant naive. What he said was Neve, Nieve. But I'm assuming he meant naive. And I'm not a DJ. I haven't jocked a disc in 25, 30 years. Certainly 25. And it wasn't I guess it was a compact disc the last time I jocked one. I jaw jack now. I'm a jaw jacker. 6241. All right, I did promise this, and I'll jaw jack about it for a moment. We'll get back to your telephone calls coming up. A group of fifth grade girls this is a really odd story. A group of fifth grade girls were forced to play the boys in a recreational youth league. However, they were not recognized as champions despite the fact that they won the league title. When the trophy was presented, it was awarded instead to the boys who had lost the game. The girls who played in a competitive girls' league for 3 years representing Spain Park were told they could not continue to use the Hoover Gymnasium for their practice unless they joined the youth's recreational league and played with the boys. According to one of the mothers who were on the winning team, she said the girls were in the middle of the pack. They lost tough games during the youth rec league. Playing with the boys was a challenge, but they rose to the challenge, and it made them better players and a better team. In a Facebook post that has now gone viral, and I noticed it because this is my former stomping ground down there in the Birmingham area. The mother of one of the girls said they were told before the title game that they could play in the championship game, but they would not be allowed to have the trophy even if they won. The only reason given was because they were girls. Now, while the parents of the team accept the fact that they were told this prior to the championship game, what I don't understand is why in the world you wouldn't award the girls this trophy. You required them to enter the rec. Apparently, they were required to enter the rec league as a condition of their allowance to practice in the gymnasium. They said they had to enter the rec league. They wanted it. And they did. And as a part of being in the rec league, they were allowed in the tournament. And when they won the tournament, they were not awarded the trophies. Seems a little cross-minded to me. Doesn't seem to me if you are not going to allow. So it sounds like they were allowing them to compete, not believing for a moment that they were going to be able to win. And once they won, they didn't want them to win. And so they used some rule within the competition to prevent the awarding of the trophies to the girls. That's the way it sounds to me. So there's the story as promised. I paid it off. One of those that you just shake your head and you don't understand why some of these things have to be the way that they are. Makes no sense to me. In the meantime, lawmakers are set to decide whether or not the state of Tennessee will go helmetless in this General Assembly. We are to understand that there's a bill that's been introduced that would make an allowance for individuals choosing not to wear helmets in the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee would join states like Florida and others that have no requirement that you wear a helmet on a public street, although it's my understanding that the Tennessee legislation would go so far as to say that you would still be required to have a helmet if you had TennCare as your health insurance. And a lot of you have response to that on the super text line. 9629 says there will be a. By the way, I call you by the numbers because I heard Dan Mandis do that one day. You're welcome to offer a name when you send in a super text, and if you offer a name, I won't call you by these silly numbers. 5225 says you're not a DJ, you're not experienced entertaining. You are not a DJ. You are an experienced, entertaining commentator on the best talk radio in Nashville. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. There will be a Lifetime movie made out of that story. I'm calling it now. That's possibly true. Matt, I would love to hear you hit the post. Once a jock, always a jock. Much respect. I could hit the post back in the day, my friend. I mean, you give me a 26-second lead in, and I'll crank that thing out. Matt, hear me out. Maybe Chuck Schumer was telling the truth when he said the January 6th gave him Now, see, why are you doing that to me? Jason, you know better. And I don't recall him saying that. Maybe I missed it. Mr. Murphy, you're most certainly not a DJ. I'm barely a DJ, and I make my living at it. Well, that's what we used to call radio jocks. I worked in country music back in the day. On occasion. Ray is in Clarksville. He joins us.
I make my living at it.
All right. Ray, once you turn that radio down, we'll be able to talk with you. Biloxi is next in Central Alabama. Hey, Biloxi, how are you?
Hey, man, I hadn't talked to you in a little bit, but I did talk to you when you was on the air in Montgomery, and then I talked to you when you was on the air in Birmingham, and, of course, I have to chase you all over the country, but that's the only way I get any news about Alabama. They're not covering that fifth-grade girl story at all. They did cover, 1819 News said that one of the people at the Antifa riot in Atlanta against the police was an attorney for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which we all know is a scam, collecting money anyway. But they put out a list of hate groups. But every hate group that they've listed hasn't been arrested for domestic terrorism like one of their own lawyers.
I'm surprised that the Southern Poverty Law Center is still around, considering that Morris Slees was their. Morris Dees. Morris Dees was their originator, right? Remember that when Morris Slees?
Yes,
Morris Dees.
Cookbooks.
Yeah.
At the University of Alabama, and the Southern, and he created the Southern Poverty Law Center, and then he got kicked out for sexual harassment and racism.
That's what I'm referring to. He got the boot, and somehow the Southern Poverty Law Center still exists. I mean, but no, they're a money-making shakedown operation. They have been for a long, long time. They're not interested in equal justice under the law. They're interested in reaping the benefits of wagging their finger at certain organizations that they have ideological differences with and calling those organizations racist.
But the people in Vermont and New Hampshire and Chicago and Portland, Oregon, they think Southern Poverty Law Center. They're actually doing something for poor people in the South. And you know, because you lived here, because they're in Montgomery, they aren't doing any of that. All they're doing is fundraising. It's just like BLM. We just got a good name and a good scam, and we put out a bunch of good mailers and send us money, and that's how they're making their bank.
Well, one of the things that they do to make money, I remember years ago, you might recall this, Auburn University had a bit of a scandal that a fraternity on campus held a Halloween party. And one of the fraternity members came to the Halloween party in blackface. This was about 15 or so years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And obviously it became a scandal because a white person was in blackface on a fraternity at a fraternity party on campus. And in order to keep their status as a fraternity, I think the parent organization had to give like $200,000 to the Southern Poverty Law Center so they could come in and give a re-education seminar. I mean, that's the kind of garbage they do.
A black fraternity at Auburn University created a list of all the names you can call white people, all the slang names.
Oh, no, I remember that.
Had been nothing said about that. Anyway, I'll let you go. I know you're busy. But anyway, I'm listening to you. Sorry to call you at work.
Hey, Biloxi, no problem, man. I appreciate that. 615-737-9986. Let's try Ray one more time.
Sorry to call you at work. Hey, Biloxi, no problem, man. I appreciate that.
I'm only keeping Ray on the line so I can yell at him.
Let's try Ray one more time. Sorry to call you at work.
Hello?
Ray.
Hi, this is Roy.
Roy?
Roy, R-O-Y.
Mm-hmm. Hey, is this your first time calling a radio show?
On your show, I've been on the Phil Valentine and John Mandis.
Did you have the radio all turned up? Anyway, okay, don't listen to me. Just we're having a conversation, Roy, so try to listen when I talk and I'll listen when you talk, okay?
Okay.
All right. Go right ahead, Roy.
Okay, I've got a question that probably nobody's asked anybody. Didn't the taxpayer pay for the Federal Reserve?
Wait, I may have misunderstood your question, Roy. Ask it again.
Okay, didn't the taxpayer pay for the Federal Reserve?
You're asking me if tax dollars go to the Federal Reserve?
No, didn't the taxpayer buy the Federal Reserve, the oil that we're buying back?
You're talking about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
Yes.
Okay, that's different than the Federal Reserve.
Okay, or strategic. I didn't know, but didn't the taxpayer pay for it once, and then we're having to pay for it again to put in our tanks?
Yes. We, as a government, our government paid to buy the strategic petroleum that is utilized in the reserve. Now they're selling it back out of the reserve, and they'll have to buy it again. So they're earning. Yeah.
So we've had to pay for it twice then. So that was my question. So.
Well, I hope I've answered it, Roy. Thank you for your call this afternoon. I appreciate you listening and calling in. Just a quick note about how to get off on the right foot on a telephone call at a radio show. You might want to turn that radio down. You can listen on the phone. If you call us up, and you're invited to do so at any point, you'll be able to listen on the phone. The volume level will be a little lower while you're listening on the phone until you actually get on air, and then that volume will go up. You should be able to hear me just fine. If you continue to have your radio up, you're going to confuse yourself and others because we have a delay. And also, a lot of times, that creates an echo, and it's difficult for us to understand one another. Roy, thank you for your call, and I hope you call again soon. It's 2:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So many wonderful things to say about Nashville Painting Company. Obviously, they are the go-to people that I recommend in Nashville, in Middle Tennessee, for your interior, exterior work, cabinet staining, brick painting, brick lime washing, and so much more. Deck staining and fence staining as well. They are the residential paint experts, but they'll do your commercial property as well. They'd love to paint your place of business. With free estimates and free color consultation, Jeremy and his incredible team, they've been doing it right in Nashville for almost a decade now. They, speaking of a decade, have the best brick painting warranty in the industry, 10 years. 3, 5, 7, and 10-year warranties available on their paint, professional estimates, and incredible scopes and pricing. And every job that they do has a superintendent on site, so you don't have to worry about the job being done to your specifications because there's someone answerable to you at every job site. Call Jeremy today when it's time to paint. I encourage you to call Nashville Painting Company, 615-635-0350, 635-0350 for our friends at Nashville Painting Company. Thank you, Tim Melton. 224 Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show in progress until 3 o'clock. Thank you for being with us. Whatever time you're able to give us, we're obviously appreciative of that. I thank you for this. Robert writes in and offers me some strong advice regarding my allergies in Nashville, Tennessee, sneezing, coughing, watery eyes, etc. Said that he went a natural way with a formula that was made by a natural herbologist or an herb company. Thank you for the tip there, Robert. I do appreciate it. I appreciate all your correspondence. 615-737-9986. If you so desire to be a part of the show, you're welcome to do so. Chuck Schumer has spoken back out, as has the White House, against the presentation of information last night regarding the January 6th riots, break-in, unlawful entry, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you call it, don't call it an insurrection, because that's not what it was. He's not the only person. They're not the only people speaking out. None other than Ken Burns made an appearance this morning on CNN this morning, and I know none of you watched because it's one of the lowest-rated shows on cable television, so we thought we would bring it to you this afternoon. Ken Burns, someone that I have great respect for a lot of the documentary filmmaking that he's been involved with over the years. I mean, the Civil War documentary is one of the most compelling that you'll ever see. Baseball was incredible. Country music was another of the Ken Burns documentaries that I enjoyed very much. That is not to say that Ken Burns himself has really a handle on modern history or modern politics, considering, well, this little nugget from this morning.
Moved enough to write about this bill and what's going on with the whole idea of critical race theory and not teaching the full history of this country. Why?
You know, what makes America great is not the suppression of ideas or the pursuit of every corner of those ideas may lead us or the facts. It's about who we are and how we investigate who we are and celebrate the diversity of who we are. All of these bills that DeSantis and others are doing limit our ability to understand who we are and are not inclusive. They're exclusive. They're narrowing the focus of what is and isn't American history. It's terrifying. It feels like a Soviet system, or, you know, the way the Nazis would build a Potemkin village. Tucker Carlson's doing the same thing with the footage from 1/6. It's just a kind of rewriting of history at the most dangerous level. It's a huge threat to our republic. I'm doing, Don, a film right now, working on a major series on the history of the American Revolution, and I can tell you that Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine and George Washington and John Adams and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton are rolling over in their graves if they think that this person is carrying the mantle of what it is to be American.
Okay, wait a minute. So Ken Burns cited multiple slave owners in his example. I mean, how does Lemon get him? Lemon's going to let him get away with that? Because in critical race theory, we are taught that these are individuals that are not to be looked up to or revered because we don't put into any context their ownership of people as slaves. And because under critical race theory, you cannot separate modern concepts versus historical concepts, you may not, Ken Burns, bring up these slaveholders as examples of what it is to be American. Secondarily, Ron DeSantis declined to allow critical race theory to be taught in advanced placement courses in the state of Florida for a reason. Not because they were putting slavery in its historical context, because they were advancing certain theories that suggested that white people were racist no matter what, which is in itself racist. Just go look at the curriculum, Ken, and you'll see for yourself. Thirdly, you throw Tucker Carlson into the mix with your ridiculous comment. How is adding additional context and information into a situation somehow narrowing the focus of that situation? Tucker Carlson and others who want to get to the bottom of what really went down on January 6th are using footage given to him by the Speaker of the House to expose other people in their rewriting of history. The January 6th committee should be your target of focus, Ken Burns. You should be frustrated the January 6th committee declined to add context to their analysis of the proceedings. Instead, they cherry-picked information for their own narrative, for their own agenda. How dare you lecture me on what is and is not important in the context of what went down 2.5, 3 years ago? I don't understand how Ken Burns can suggest, well, just listen to it one more time.
George Washington and John Adams and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton are rolling over in their graves. And I can tell you that Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine and George Washington and John Adams and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton are rolling over in their graves. At least 3 of them own slaves. They think that
at least 3 of those individuals he named own slaves, if not more. I would think that Ken Burns, instead of following along the lines of the CNN agenda, would think it more important to get to the truth of the history that occurred on January 6th, the good and the bad. By the way, not all of it certainly is not positive. There were people that broke the law. Every person that went into that Capitol Rotunda, every person that went in to the Capitol should have used the common sense that God gave them to understand that this was not a permissible act. Put that in the context of many of them went in with what seemed to be the permission of the Capitol Police. Some of them broke down windows. Some of them seemed to break down doors. Would we like to know the motivations of those people, why they did what they did? Sure, I would, but it doesn't change their actions as illegal. John writes in and says, once again, I can't understand how the left, politicians, and media expect to get by trying to debunk what the video clearly shows us. And he's right. This isn't a matter of Tucker spinning the activities of January 6th. The video tells the story. An individual that we were told that broke the law repeatedly can only be seen being escorted around the facility by Capitol Police officers. Now, I'm going to admit something to you. For a while, I asked myself, how in the world can anyone suggest that they thought they were legally allowed to be in the Capitol? Then I watched this video last night, and I thought, if I was this so-called QAnon shaman, they're walking me around. They go to a locked door. They find a locked door. The guy motions him to go a different way. They go a different way, and he lets him into the facility. He walked by 9 police officers, and they didn't say a word to him. He was being led by an additional police officer when he walked by them. 4 years in prison. That's what he got for that. It's 2:33 on Super Talk. All right, friends. So the new year's well here, right? We're into March now. Before you know it, it will be springtime. And I want you to take the time to finally do something about the pain that is slowing you down. Whether it's back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, all of them can be treated with no needles and no downtime. At the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, they've been helping people get back to a pain-free life for well over 30 years. Now, they're more than just a chiropractic center, although they believe in chiropractic care. They also have state-of-the-art equipment like the Class 5 laser, red light therapy, spinal decompression, all the pinpoint inflammation in the body, reduce pain, swelling, and accelerate healing. That's what it is all about, healing you in a more natural way. Regardless of where the pain is coming from, they can help. As I've been telling you for months now, to kick off the new year, they've got that special offer of $23 for your initial examination, x-ray, and findings. $23. It's a limited time. It won't last the full year. You need to give them a call and start the year off the right way. We're into it for the first several months. I want to make sure that you're pain-free. 615-882-4838, 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. It is 3. No, it's not. It's 2:39. Man, it's been a hard last hour. I don't know what happened here. I fell off my cracker. I just slid right off the cracker. Things were going well in the first hour. Second hour I thought was pretty good. And third hour has just been this. 615-737-9986 if you want to lift my spirits. You can also find us on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. A lot of you voicing your opinion regarding helmet laws in our super text line. Matt, I'm in favor of the no helmet laws as long as the operator can provide proof of $100,000 plus an individual insurance policy for when they have to be cleaned off the road with mops. Thanks. I'm John, by the way. Thank you, John. Larry says if you don't want to wear one, you don't have to wear one. But I'm going to wear one. Matt, I grew up riding dirt bikes. They were dinosaur-powered without helmets. Then when I got my first Harley a few years ago, I started wearing a skull cap that had our flag and 2 skulls on it. Then I grew up, started wearing a full face helmet to protect my pretty face. Look, I'm all about personal freedoms and liberties. But you have to take accountability for yourself and responsibility for yourself should you decide to go helmetless. And that's my point. I don't want my insurance paying for your stupidity. And I believe that if you're especially on an interstate highway or at speed and you're riding without a helmet, you're begging for trouble. But you do you. I mean, that's a personal decision. I used to feel the same way about seatbelts, but now I've come to the conclusion that enough accidents, well, let's put it this way. If you're in an automobile and you have your seatbelt on, you can minimize the severity of an accident by taking control of the vehicle in a way that you might not be able to do without that seatbelt on. So in that way, it's not about your health and safety. It's about the health and safety of your passengers and other people on the road. And so I can see why a driver being required to wear a seatbelt in an automobile is a point of safety, not just for yourself, but for others. Not so much with a helmet. A helmet is a personal choice. I don't understand why you would make the personal choice not to wear a helmet, considering the dangers involving riding a motorcycle generally. But you do you. I've got a full-faced helmet. I got a couple of three-quarter helmets at my house. And I tried, like I said, I tried the over-the-ear skull caps, and I didn't like them because I didn't like the wind noise in my head. And plus, I like wearing earbuds when I'm riding anyway. Got some low music going on in the background. I mean, it's the only way to go. In the meantime, there's Linda. She's in beautiful Hendersonville. Thank you, Linda, for your call. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
The shaman. I want to know, did he have an attorney, number one? If he did he have access to this tape that Tucker showed last night? And if he did have access, why didn't he put make a defense that he didn't do anything except go in when maybe he shouldn't have? But he was definitely not in there insurrecting, as they say. And if his attorney didn't have access to this tape, then I think that is a good reason for them to go back to court.
Well, I agree on every point you just made, Linda. And boy, you're smart because you're thinking just like me. No, I'm just kidding. You are smart. No, but I thought about these same questions, and I could not get sufficient answers to the questions before I came on air. And the basic question is, did Jacob Chansley's attorney have access to the information that we saw last night, just like you asked it? Because if that attorney did not, then he was denied, video information that would have made his case stronger, that Jacob was not aware that he was doing an illegal act. Secondarily, if he did have access to this video surveillance and didn't do anything with it, then he's just a horrible attorney.
Absolutely. This guy, Jacob, was denied due process under the law.
Miss Linda, I don't know how you feel about it. I think anyone with any reasonable sense would recognize that maybe they should not be in the Capitol building with that type of thing going on. That said, I've been to the Capitol. I don't know if you have. The Capitol's a big place. And it could be possible that you're seeing violence on one side of the Capitol, and on the other side of the Capitol, people are just being let in by Capitol Police because they've heard on their radios that they need to let people in. It is possible that, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's possible that this so-called QAnon shaman went about his business and had no idea he was violating the law. But I know this. I could easily see a 3-month jail sentence for what he did. That makes sense to me. But 4 years is a travesty of justice.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%.
Miss Linda, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot. Rick is next in Manchester with an idea on helmets. Hey, Rick, how are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Great. Yeah, well, I agree with you. I don't believe there should be helmet laws or I don't know what your ideas of seatbelt laws are, but I do believe you're a moron if you don't wear a helmet or seatbelt. But I don't think there should be laws dictating it. But so several years ago, I was in a motorcycle accident. 100% my fault, just riding too fast, and I was wearing a full face helmet. And one of the arguments, the people who don't want to wear helmets say, "Oh, a full face helmet's going to break your collarbone." Well, mine broke mine really bad because I hit the ground so hard. I would have either had a broken skull and been dead, or the whole front of my full face helmet was totally ground down because I went down at 80 miles an hour and just slid on the asphalt.
Wow.
I was covered in road rash. I spent a week in the hospital because of it. And without that helmet, like I said, either my skull would have been just fractured to pieces, or I wouldn't even have had a face because the whole front of that full face helmet was just ground down. Man,
oh man. I'm glad you're okay,
yeah,
Rick.
so,
that's a compelling story and a compelling reason why to wear a helmet. I mean, I've seen enough. You remember those old movies that they used to play back when we were kids in school, like Blood on Our Streets or whatever it was called,
right.
Blood on the Roads. If more motorcyclists heard stories like this and saw the results of some of the accidents where guys aren't wearing helmets, I think we'd see a lot more helmet wearing, even in states that have made it legal. But, at the same time, it's your freedom. I mean, right? Rick had the freedom to choose not to wear a helmet. I guess not in a state where it's illegal, but point being is if you make it optional to wear a helmet, you have every freedom in the world not to wear a helmet. And if your brain goes splat and sploosh, and that's the way it goes. We make choices in life, and sometimes those chickens come home to roost. Speaking of chickens coming home to roost, Karine Jean-Pierre was back on the roost today in the White House in the press briefing room. We might have time to share a thought or two from Karine as to what the president is and is not doing regarding illegal immigration. It's a story that comes up from time to time, considering that they haven't done anything about it. I'll play you some selected cuts from today's press conference. Before we go and hand off to Brian Wilson, it's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Tim Melton. Did he say a house call for tattooing? Well, I guess you learn something new every day, don't you? I had no idea. It is 2:56 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Brian Wilson in the drive coming up in mere moments before we get out of here. A couple of other items to go over. One, I've started a new Super Talk TV, I don't know, tradition. I don't know what you would call it, but I've started it, and that is that we have a special message just for you on Super Talk TV. I've got to get a little thing to hold it. It's a whiteboard, and I'll put a new message up on the whiteboard every day, and people are asking me what the message says because they're having a hard time reading it based on where I had to put it. And the first message on the whiteboard for Super Talk TV, the viewing audience is, hermits have no peer pressure, which is true. And by the way, a lot of these I steal from other people, and I'm not going to be able to remember how many of them I stole from others and from whom I stole them. I happen to know that I stole that one from Stephen Wright. So I'll try to give credit where credit is due when I possibly can. But it's right, I guess if you're watching on Super Talk TV, it's right. Hold on, let me see if we can do this. It's right there. There. Yes, there. Also, a new segment that I would like to start, if I get enough of this, a new segment that I would like to start on the show is a letter correspondence segment. Did you ever pull that, or did you not? You did not. Well, then you have to come on and sing it. Letters. I get letters. I get letters. I get letters. I don't get many of them, but I get some. Like I received this. I don't think I'm giving away anything. No, I received that in the mail. So just to show you that I'm not making this up, if you're watching on Super Talk TV, this is the letter that I got in the mail. It's addressed to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, there you go. Does Wilson use this?
Oh, we get letters. We get your letters.
I thought maybe it's Del Giorno. I don't know. Somebody, is it Del Giorno? All right, Del Giorno. Okay, well, here we go. Here's my letter. There you go. Thank you, Michael, for the theme music. So I received this, and it says on the back of the envelope, talk show topic. I'm going to go ahead and offer a warning. If you have little individuals in your car right now, I know that I can say this on the radio, but I would feel bad if you had a 6-year-old that wanted you to explain this to them. So now is your countdown to turn down the radio. Just do it for like 20 seconds and then turn it back up for Brian Wilson, okay? In 3, 2, 1. The headline is from USA Today, February 15th, 2023. Increase in average penis size raises concerns about fertility. That is hard news. You're right. Thank you, Mr. Producer. I don't know how to take that. I received another piece of correspondence that said, why grass lawns are bad for the environment and your wallet. We're going to do a deep dive on both of these subjects coming up tomorrow on the Matt Murphy Show, if they let us, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Also, I saw the Chris Rock special. He made a lot of people uncomfortable. He's filthy, as you well know, but what a great special. You might want to watch it. It attacks wokeness. I love that. Here's non-woke Brian Wilson coming up with a drive right now.